This question is a little weird because the answer is within the question. But anyway, we have 40. So we're going down 40 until we reach, as the question says, up to 20. So when we reach to 20, then we go straight down. When we go straight down, I know it's not exactly straight, but we're close to 10 or close to 13. It's not exactly even 15. Yes, we're close to about 13 knots. Now, if we go back to the question, it says, with a reported wind of 20 knots, which runway is acceptable for an airplane with a 13 knot maximum? So, at 20 knots. So, if you noticed, the 20 knots became 320. All right, because we had north at 360. So when we're looking at 320 or 320, what runway is 320? Runway 320 is runway 32. We just drop off the 0. So the answer is runway 32. You didn't have to work out everything, but everything else is just checking your work. That indeed we did indeed get 13, and when we worked out the problem. So for instance, the same thing is repeated. Well, the same type of problem is repeated in number 34. So number 34, what is the maximum wind velocity? 35. Well, let's skip 34 for a second. Let's jump to 35, just for the sake. So you have 35, which is south, which is 180, right? So we have to do 20 knots, right? So what's 20 knots? So 20 knots of 180, what would give us 20 when subtracted? Well, let's see the options. We have 10, 14, and 24. So we would have to go through the process of elimination to figure out. At 20 knots and 13 knot maximum. I'm not sure, but we could work it backwards. So, that may not help us. If we were to work backwards, if we were to do 13, right? Well, actually it will. It'll give us an idea. So why don't we work backwards? The other problem, we had a better idea. This one, I'm not quite sure on the top of my head. So we can work backwards. So 13 knots, this is 15 here. So 13 will be roughly here. Okay, so let's go up to 20. 20 is that's interesting. 20 lands us right back at 40. And then come down here. Right? 40. So just seeing that itself, I'm thinking 14. I could be wrong, but let's see here. So looking at that, if it's 40, it could be 140. So, so I have 180. And looking at the discussion, if the wind is from the south at 20 knots runway, i.e. such as 14, right? And I got 14, and 14 would be 140. So that gives us a 40-degree angle. Look at that. So what we could do is you could also work backwards, and that's what we did for 35. And that's the answer. And if we were to work backwards for 34 as well, or 33, I think that would be fine as well. It says the 13 knots, right? So We have 13 knots, which is right here, and it goes to 20, which is about there. And yes, so it's 40, but 40 is not an option. So the closest number to 40 is 32. So you could work backwards for both 33 and 35. Now back to 34, or let's work on 34. So we have 34. What is the maximum wind velocity for 30-degree? Oh, it's the same type somewhat. What is the maximum velocity for a 30-degree angle crosswind if the maximum crosswind component for the airplane is at 12 knots? So it's the same thing as numbers 32 and 31 and 19. So 35, 30. So 30 is, oh, 30 is already in red. So that's delightful. So we go down, and we're going down to how far? 30. What does it say? What is the amount for a 30-degree angle if the maximum crosswind component for our plane is 12 knots? I have to go all the way down, I guess. And then it says 12 knots. That looks to be around 20 or 24, but that's not clear enough. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now we have to draw our imaginary arc. That's poor. Yeah, it's shy of 25. So if that's the case, the answer for 34 would be 24 when drawing the arc. All right, that concludes those problems.